So we work in a lot of different churches, and one of the big reasons we're usually called in is because stuff isn't working correctly.
All the time.
Yeah. So I thought it might be cool for us to discuss what are some things that you kind of look at when you're first troubleshooting a system? Like, what's your go-to troubleshooting plan?
Well, the first thing would be I would talk to the client and see what's wrong. Because we wouldn't want to just walk into a building and start looking at lights if sound is the issue.
Right.
So I suppose there would be the first step would be, okay, let's just have a discussion. Usually they discuss that with you before we actually go on site.
But it's interesting how a lot of times they're not really sure what's wrong. Like, I just got a call this week where somebody was like, the faders on my console are not changing the sound. That's a really vague statement where I'm like, well, I don't even know where I would start. Or we got a call a couple weeks ago where they literally just said nothing's working. There's no sound coming out of our system.
And in that situation, I was the one with our team that went and diagnosed it. First thing I did there was they said no sound. We have no sound. Right. So I didn't just go to the console and go, oh, yep, sure enough, talking into a mic.
You didn't just turn some music up?
I guess the guy was right. There's no sound.
Right.
No, I didn't start there. I eliminated everything. So the first thing I did was took a tone generator, plugged it right into the speakers that were hanging.
Right.
Hey, the speakers are working. Okay, the speakers work. Then I went back to the amp, plugged the tone generator into the amp. Okay, now the amps work and the speakers work. So I know we're starting somewhere. So you have to know where to start. You start where you eliminate everything and then work backwards. It ended up being just a communication error.
Between the console and the
stage
snake.
boxes.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
But that's kind of the thing. When you go to troubleshoot, a lot of times, I know personally, I get stuck right here. Like, I'm looking at the console and going, why am I not getting any signal? And my brain sometimes freezes up. And I just want to stay focused right here. And I go look through routing, even though the routing probably didn't change. And I go look through, even silly things like EQ and compression, even though I'm not even getting a signal yet. And that's the really important thing. When you go to troubleshoot, you need to work yourself backwards. And you have to check one thing at a time. That's probably the biggest problem I see with people who don't really understand troubleshooting is it's kind of like doing an experiment. If you guys remember back when you went to school a long time ago.
A long time ago for some of us.
But no, like we would do experiments, right? And the rule was you had to like follow the paper exactly and you would change one thing, right? You'd have your control group and then you'd have this other group and you'd change one thing and then you'd look at the differences. And that's kind of what troubleshooting is like. Like you have to change one thing at a time. If I'm not getting any signal and all of a sudden I go change the microphone and I change the cable and I plug it into a different input and maybe I get a result and it works. I don't know which of those three things fixed the problem.
Exactly.
And so I always like to go back to the very beginning. Like if I'm not getting input on stage, I take a different microphone with me.
Yeah.
And I plug this microphone into the exact same cable. Does it work?
Yeah.
No. Okay, then I switch back. Then we change the cable out. Does that work? No. Okay, then I go to the snake. Because sometimes, we know this from production days, like you'll have a snake channel go out. Or we did a show 2 months ago, one of the channels in the DI went out.
Yeah. Yep.
And I couldn't know that until I went through the cables, checked everything, and finally we realized, one of the channels in this DI just isn't working. And sure enough, when our guy tore it open, it was broken. It can happen.
Yeah, and usually it's a simple thing. But, and this is key right here.
Yeah.
It's how we process things in our mind. Because think about it. Let's just paint the picture of Sunday morning.
Yeah.
You're on stage.
When most things go wrong.
The band, nobody wants to be doing this on Sunday morning at 6:30, 7:30, whatever.
Right.
And the band's up there. Maybe they're trying to get started there. Maybe there's some tension between the sound guy and the band and all that stuff. They need one cable, and you're running around. I can't find a cable. I can't. You're not thinking clearly.
Yeah.
And that a lot of times can be the problem. But the only way to get better at that is to be in those situations.
Right.
But be self-aware of those situations and actually start training your brain to stop, to think, and to go in order. It's just like learning how to play guitar. If you didn't know how to play guitar and I showed you a G chord, you wouldn't just magically know how to play a G chord.
Right.
It would take time. You'd have to sit and practice. It's the same way with troubleshooting.
I think that stop and slow down is probably one of the biggest keys. I remember we were doing a show not long ago, and this DJ plugged his rig in, and all of a sudden we had buzz everywhere. And I'm freaking out. And I've been doing this a while, but I don't know. It's 106 degrees outside. We're sweating. And our owner walked by, and he's like, hey, man, just breathe for a second. Okay. He's like, do you know how to fix this? I was like, yeah, I know how to fix it. He's like, then just go. Go slow. Go fix it. Everyone can wait. It's not going to be a big deal. But that's the big thing is just start slow, change one thing at a time, and be methodical about it, and you'll figure it out.